You're listening to the Quint podcast.
In the backdrop of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrapped up his first foreign visit of the year to Europe on 5th May with visits to Germany, Denmark and France. PM Modi's first port of call was Berlin, where he met the new German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, whose government has decided to make economic sacrifices by reducing its energy dependence on Russia and even changing its decades-old stance on defense spending. PM Modi then travelled to Copenhagen, where he held the second India-Nordic summit with Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Iceland and Norway to explore new areas of cooperation. This summit was special because India is the only country other than the US that the Nordic Five engage on such a level. And on his way back to New Delhi, PM Modi made a stopover in Paris, where President Emmanuel Macron was re-elected just 10 days ago. India and France have been strategic partners since 1998, and the talks here focused on the importance of a free, open and rules-based Indo-Pacific. A common texture across this trip was seen during the joint statements in each country, where differences over Ukraine were apparent. In Germany, PM Modi's statement said that no one will be victorious in this war, and the only way out was through talks. Though India has been in an uncomfortable position since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war and has continued to not condemn Russia for any of its actions so far, there seems to be a level of comprehension by European countries on India's stance. And the flurry of European leaders and delegations to India in the past few weeks, especially the visit of EU President Ursula von der Leyen, suggest a changing world order. In today's episode, we discuss the main takeaways from PM Modi's EU trip with our guest Manoj Joshi, a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you, and I'm your host, Himmat. As Russia gets more isolated by Western and EU sanctions, Europe has started to loom larger than ever before in India's diplomatic strategy. Although India was one of the first countries to establish relations with the EU way back in 1962, the relationship expanded beyond trade and economic relations only in the recent decades. But over the past few weeks, Europe's intensity of engagement has increased in the wake of the war in Ukraine, with delegations from UK, Poland, Portugal, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, among others, and EU President Ursula von der Leyen visiting India. And an important outcome of her visit was the launch of the EU-India Trade and Technology Council, which according to a press release will quote-unquote provide the political steer and necessary structure to operationalize political decisions, coordinate technical work and report to political level to ensure implementation and follow-up in areas that are important. End quote. Manoj Joshi, a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, explains that with Europe moving away from Russia and China, India has become a natural partner for EU in the Indo-Pacific.
Well, one of the important things is that the Ukraine war has upset all the calculations. And initially, the Russians saw the Russians and the Chinese had seen Europe as a major partner, an economic partner. After all, Russia supplied a vast amount of energy to Europe and has a lot of trade with Europe. Likewise, the Chinese had very ambitious programs. The entire Belt and Road Initiative actually is directed towards Europe. And but now with this Ukrainian conflict, what has happened is there's a sharp break. And the Russian-European relations are not going to return to normal for a long time already. And we don't know when, if you look at the range of sanctions that are already there, when they would, what time they'll be there, we have no idea. Mm-hmm. Now, along with that has come a kind of an estrangement with China. Now, that had independent causes also, meaning China and Europe were having problems in 2020, 2021 with regard to Xinjiang and the human rights issue. And both sides had sanctioned each other's, issued sanctions against each other's officials. And so there were already problems between Europe and China. And now that China is standing foursquare with Russia on this Ukraine thing, it has deepened the divide between, Europe and China and Russia as a combined. So therefore, for Europe, looking for partners, I think it has become much more important to see India as a potential partner in all this. Of course, the United States remains Europe's principal military and economic partner.
Now, coming to PM Modi's Euro visit, starting first with Germany to attend the 6th Indo-German Intergovernmental Consultations, or IGC. Now, India and Germany don't have a traditional strategic partnership. The relationship so far is based on trade, investment, technology, functional collaboration, skill development, and sustainability. However, the war has changed the dynamics of this relationship. Germany, which over the past few years has invested a lot in Russia, has made significant breaks in its relationship with the former Soviet Union, from tough sanctions to terminating the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline and even contemplating banning Russian oil. And PM Modi's visit becomes an opportunity for both the countries to deepen their trade relations more, with one of the biggest gains coming from the IGC was in the form of a joint intent to establish a green and sustainable development partnership where Germany is going to finance 10 billion euros to fund green projects in India. Moving now to PM Modi's visit to Copenhagen, where he participated in the second India-Nordic summit and held bilateral meetings with all the attending prime ministers of Finland, Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. And like Germany, India's partnership with Nordic countries is on the same lines of green partnership and investment. However, the undertone of the summit was Russia. While India joined the Nordics in expressing quote-unquote serious concern over the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, India's silence on the issue may have been uncomfortable for Sweden and Finland, who are contemplating joining NATO in the wake of war on their borders. Now, trade between Denmark and India has increased over the years from $2.8 billion in 2016 to $5 billion in 2021. However, Manoj Joshi weighs in that though the two sides have signed over 9 pacts, real action on the ground would be difficult to translate given India's bureaucratic red tape.
The problem with the Europeans is that the problem is that the Europeans are well known for their engineering and their high quality products and digital innovation. The Swedes and the Danes and others. The problem is that Indian official culture is that you try to get the things at the cheapest. So when governments issue tenders, etc., they encourage what is called L1, meaning the lowest bid. And this is where many European companies have a problem because they end up they are quite straightforward. They put up their products are often high priced, but they are quality products. So, but the point is, you have a cheaper competitor from somewhere in Asia, South Korea, or Malaysia, or somewhere else, Vietnam or China. Then that competitor gains the advantage. So the Europeans find this a bit of a problem. And plus, of course, as I said, the bureaucratic red tape in India is legendary. No matter what the government says, that red tape is there, and it is very frustrating. Many of the European countries are very small. They don't have kind of huge populations. I mean, they work with their companies are pretty small also, and they can't afford kind of huge staff, etc., to deal with all this.
Coming to PM Modi's last leg of the trip, France, which stands out from all the other countries which PM Modi visited, given the close decades-long bilateral ties between the two countries. As the joint statement noted, their partnership is based on a quote-unquote abiding faith in strategic autonomy and a belief in multipolar world that goes back decades. France has also been a good friend to India over the years, standing by India since 1998, when India conducted nuclear tests against the criticism of the rest of the international community. And given this friendship, it is also important to note here that France currently holds the rotating presidency of the EU till the end of June 2022. This is significant for India given that free trade agreement talks with the EU have been stalled for more than a decade now. So with France by its side, can we expect to see a shift in India-EU relations in the coming months? Manoj Joshi weighs in.
See, they can play a role, but the point is that the EU bureaucracy in Brussels is the key part. Okay, yeah. They lay it out. France and Germany, since they are bilaterally much more familiar with India, their companies work here. They are aware of the shortcomings. They are aware of the challenges, and they definitely can contribute, to the whole the process in Brussels. But at the end of the day, we have to be very clear that it is the European Union bureaucracy which deals with this, and the European Union functions in a kind of a consensual basis. So they try to take everyone along with them when they are formulating, various rules on tariffs. Yeah. And they, as far as they're concerned it's not just tariff only. I mean, India would like issues of tariff only, but they have other issues, labor conditions, various other kind of conditionalities, climate-related, technology and all kinds of conditionalities are also there in their trade agreements. But when it comes to defense and security, etc., they are often bilateral processes.
Yeah.
And there, of course, we have a much more depth with France. We have just bought the Rafale aircraft from them. We have had the Scorpion submarine deal with them. And France has a sophisticated defense industry, and they are willing to work with us in a whole range of areas. The Germans are not too much into the defense side, and they are also very kind of reluctant to export some of their material, defense material. There are other countries also. Sweden is there, which has a very sophisticated defense industry also. But as I said, with all of them, the same issue often comes up is that their products are extremely good, but they're also expensive.
Yeah.
And so often dealing with them is an issue, but that is from the defense trade point of view. From the strategic point of view, definitely our closest relationship are with the French and with the British, for example. With the French in the Indo-Pacific, we have a lot of coordination, particularly if you look at the southwestern part of the Indian Ocean or the western Indian Ocean, where we don't do much with the US. But we definitely do more coordination with the French, because the French actually have island territories in Southwest Indian Ocean, and the French Navy is very much present there. So we do more coordination with them, and I think if you look at the outcome of the visit, you will see that there has been a big discussion on the Indo-Pacific issue.
Manoj Joshi wrote a 3-part analysis on the significance of PM Modi's 3-day visit to Europe, and you can find these articles on the Quint's website. If you liked listening to this episode, please subscribe to The Big Story for episodic updates. We're available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website, and for any feedback, please shoot an email to podcast@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.